We saw their world in shades of fire and black, a planet of flickering torches and deep, silent nights. They were a young race, clever, but bound to the soil. They lived by the rise and fall of their sun. We decided to give them a second one, a sun that would never set. We gave them the gift of fire, not the simple flame they knew. We gave them the clean, silent fire of electricity. We built the great converters on the plains. We strung shimmering wires across continents. Our towers rose from their valleys like shining gods. We watched as the first village lit up, a star on the dark earth. Their gratitude was overwhelming. They brought us gifts of carved wood and woven fabrics. We accepted them with gentle amusement. They were children, and we were their patient teachers. We showed them how to harness the flow, how to build homes filled with steady light. We believed we were lifting them from the dark. We were so very, very proud. We thought our work was a masterpiece of benevolence. We were giving them centuries of progress in a single stroke. They would be free from the daily toil for survival. They could pursue art, star science, and philosophy. We saw a golden future for them, a future we had designed and powered. Our power lines became their arteries of progress. That was our intent. But they also became something else entirely. We started noticing small things, faint fluctuations in the current, tiny deviations that our diagnostics flagged as background noise, harmless jitters in a newly established system. We sent technicians to check the substations. They reported nothing but perfect operation. The Kalan, the people of this world, were eager to help. They would watch our crews with wide, curious eyes. They offered them food and drink. Our crews found their fascination charming. But the whispers on the current continued. The fluctuations were not random. They formed patterns, complex and repeating. We logged them, analyzed them, and dismissed them. We decided it was a resonance from their planet's magnetic field, a natural phenomenon we had not accounted for. Our arrogance was a comfortable shield. Those patterns were not resonance. They were messages. They were a language flowing through the copper veins of our gift. From one settlement to another, they spoke. They coordinated. They planned. All of it happened right under our noses, carried by the very energy we so generously provided. We thought we were uplifting a simple people. Our initial reports were filled with patronizing admiration. We noted their quick grasp of basic mechanics. We praised their ability to maintain the small domestic terminals. We saw them tinkering with our devices. We smiled and called it imitation, a child mimicking its parents. They were not imitating. They were dissecting. They were learning. Every device we gave them was a lesson. Every schematic we shared was a page in their textbook. Their sharp eyes missed nothing. They studied our technology, and more importantly, they studied us. They watched how we managed the grid. They observed our maintenance schedules. They learned our diagnostic procedures. We held open courses to teach their brightest. We wanted them to be self-sufficient one day. We had no idea they were already planning for that day. They just had a very different definition of self-sufficiency. We had a saying, a gift is only as good as the hand that receives it. We believed their hands were empty, waiting to be filled. The truth was their hands were already busy. They were sharpening the tools we had given them, preparing to carve out a future of their own design. The first move was a masterpiece of coordinated silence. It happened during their planet's seasonal storm cycle. We expected some outages. We were prepared for localized blackouts. We were not prepared for the Great Blackout. The moment the entire planetary grid went dark, every light on the planet went out at once, not in a cascade, but in a single, unified stop. Our own command centers switched to emergency power, our screens filled with red alerts from every sector. It looked like a catastrophic system failure, a flaw in our grand design. We dispatched our emergency crews. Their communication channels were strangely silent. We tried to reach them on secondary channels. Nothing. Only static. The silence from our own people was the first real sign of fear. The planetary darkness was absolute. Then, in that sudden, total darkness, we saw new lights, not the warm, steady glow of our power. These were the fierce, hungry lights of forges, scattered across the planet in places we thought were empty wilderness. In the dark, their true plan was finally revealed. They had been building. The lights returned, not everywhere, but in controlled zones, zones that now surrounded their settlements. The power flowed again, but we no longer controlled the switch. They did. Our gift was still working. It was just working for a new master. Villages of woven huts were gone. In their place stood hardened structures of metal and composite. The energy we had beamed down to power their lights was now feeding industrial forges. The air, once clear, now hummed with the sound of heavy manufacturing. Simple villages had become fortresses. We watched from our isolated outposts. Our sensors showed a staggering level of industrial activity. They were building things we could not identify. Their production speed was impossible. They were not just using our power. They were overclocking it, pushing our generators past every safety limit we had built. The forges of rebellion burned day and night. They reforged more than just metal. They were reforging their entire society. From a scattered, agrarian people into a unified industrial power. Their focus was absolute. Their purpose was terrifyingly clear. They were preparing for war. We had given them a tool. They had turned it into a weapon. We thought it would take them generations to reach this point. They managed it in less than a year. Our great project of uplift had become a project of armament. And we were the architects of our own coming demise. The grid was no longer a passive utility. It was an active weapon system. We learned this when our first scout ship tried to investigate a forge. It approached the glowing settlement, its sensors scanning. Then it simply vanished from our screens. Not an explosion, just a sudden, total loss of signal. Later, our long-range sensors picked up the wreckage. It was fused into a single, molten lump of metal. There were no scorch marks from conventional weapons. The ship had been cooked from the inside out. A focused blast of pure energy had overwhelmed its systems in a microsecond. We analyzed the energy signature. It matched the output of our own power converters. They had weaponized the grid itself. They had learned to store and release massive amounts of energy. Directed energy pulses became their artillery. The wires we had strung were now the barrels of their guns. They started testing their new weapon. Remote monitoring stations went silent one by one. Automated sensor arrays overloaded and melted. Each pulse was precise, powerful, and undeniable. We were being dismantled piece by piece. They were taking us off their board. And we were still calling it a system malfunction. Our pride was a fatal disease. Our central command refused to accept the truth. The Kalan were incapable of this. Our reports of weaponized energy were dismissed. They were reclassified as extreme atmospheric interference, or side effects of a previously unknown solar radiation. We argued with the central command. We presented the data. The energy signatures were artificial. The timing of the malfunctions was not random. They coincided with the movements of our own assets. We were being targeted, hunted. The command council called our analysis alarmist. They had spent decades planning this uplift. They had invested immense resources and prestige. To admit failure was unthinkable. To admit that the children were outsmarting us was heresy. It was easier to blame the sun or the weather. So we did nothing. We updated our shielding. We recalibrated our sensors. We treated the symptoms, not the cause. Our arrogance made us blind. We saw a series of unfortunate accidents. The Kalins saw a series of successful weapons tests, and they prepared for their final exam. Their overthrow was not a blitz of fire and steel. It was an act of silent, cold logic. They had learned our systems. They knew our dependencies. They knew that our command centers, our brains, were power-hungry. They did not need to storm our walls. They just needed to turn off the lights. One by one, our major outposts went dark. Not the planet-wide blackout from before. These were surgical strikes. They did not destroy the power lines. They simply rerouted the flow away from us. A substation would go offline here. A primary conduit would be diverted there. It was death by 1,000 cuts. Our command centers had backup generators. We had planned for emergencies. But their attack was subtle. They did not cause a blackout. They caused a brownout, a slow, steady drain of power. Just enough to keep the emergency alerts from triggering, but not enough to run our core systems. Our defenses went offline first, then our communication arrays, then our primary data hubs. We were rendered deaf, dumb, and blind, trapped inside our own fortresses without a fight. No shots were fired. No blood was shed. We were simply unplugged. The silent overthrow was complete. We finally understood. This was not a malfunction. It was a war. A new kind of war we were completely unprepared for. There were no armies marching on the horizon. There were no fleets engaging in our skies. The enemy was everywhere and nowhere. The enemy was the grid itself. Their strategy was resource denial. We needed energy to power our fabricators. They cut the power. We needed fuel for our ships. The automated refineries went silent. We needed medical supplies. The labs lost climate control. Every aspect of our advanced civilization was tied to that grid. And they held the master switch. We tried to fight back. We sent out ground patrols to retake substations. The patrols never returned. We later found their vehicles. Electronics fried, engines dead. Not destroyed by explosives, but disabled with precise energy pulses. It was like fighting a ghost, an invisible force that could strike anywhere, anytime. We were stranded. Our mighty ships were nothing more than cold metal statues. Our advanced weapons were useless without their power cells. We had built a paradise of technology on this world. Now it was our prison. And the local life forms we pitied were the wardens. The Citadel was our heart, our main planetary outpost, a monument to our engineering and our confidence. It was built to withstand any assault. Its shields could repel a fleet. Its walls were meters thick with hardened alloys. We believed it was invincible. The Citadel did not fall to an army. It did not fall to an orbital bombardment. It fell to a single, elegant command. A command sent through the very wires that fed it life. One moment, it was a beacon of light and power. The next, it was a tomb. The main power cut out. We were not worried. The backup systems engaged instantly. Fail-safe after fail-safe kicked in. Then, the backup systems failed. Not all at once. One after another, in a sequence so perfect it could only be deliberate. They had found a flaw in our redundancy, a cascading failure we had never imagined. The silence that followed was absolute. The Citadel, our symbol of strength, went dark. The hum of its life support ceased. The glow of its command spire vanished. From our smaller, isolated posts, we watched it happen. We saw our hearts stop beating. In that moment, we knew we had lost. We had always measured progress in centuries, the slow, steady climb from fire to fusion. We assumed all intelligent life followed a similar path. The Kaelin shattered that assumption. They learned to innovate with our technology at a speed that defied our understanding of star science. We began to find their creations in the ruins of our patrols. They had taken our energy rifles and improved them. They were lighter, more efficient, with a longer range. We found power cells of their own design. They held double the charge of our best models. They were not just copying us anymore. They were surpassing us. Their progress was terrifying. They had skipped all the intermediate steps. They went from firelight to advanced energy weapons in a single leap. Our gift had allowed them to bypass thousands of years of trial and error. They had no legacy systems to hold them back. They built upon our best work with a clarity of purpose we had lost. Our own development had become slow, careful, and bureaucratic. Theirs was rapid, ruthless, and brilliant. They were masters of the spark we had given them. They understood its potential in ways we never did. We saw it as a utility. They saw it as the fundamental force of the universe, to be shaped to their will. Our world on this planet collapsed overnight. We were an empire unplugged. Our entire civilization was built on the foundation of the grid. When that foundation was pulled out from under us, everything came crashing down. The complexity we were so proud of became our greatest weakness. Our automated systems failed. Our supply chains broke. Our knowledge base, stored in vast data centers, was inaccessible. We were thrown back into a pre-industrial age. Worse, we were trapped in the husk of a high-technology society. We had forgotten how to survive without it. We became prisoners of our own infrastructure. The silent, powerless cities we had built were our cages. The roads we paved led nowhere. The communication towers broadcast only static. We were a star-born people, and we had forgotten how to walk on the ground. We were gods who had forgotten how to make fire. The Kaelin, meanwhile, thrived. They had never fully abandoned their old ways. They knew how to live off the land. They had our technology, but they were not dependent on it in the same way we were. They used it as a tool, not a crutch. And now, they owned all the tools. A few of us made it to a remote comms relay. An old one, powered by a decaying isotope generator. It was too primitive for them to bother with. We had one chance. One final, desperate broadcast to the stars. A warning to anyone who might be listening. We told them our story. We spoke of our arrogance. We spoke of our blindness. We described the simple people who had outmaneuvered us at every turn. We begged any other star-traveling races to learn from our mistake. Do not confuse gratitude for subservience. Do not assume your gifts will be used as you intend. Technology has no loyalty. It serves the hand that wields it most effectively. We came as benevolent teachers, and we became a cautionary tale. A lesson written in the darkness of our dead cities. We sent the message on a tight beam, aimed at the nearest trade lane. We do not know if it was received. The generator died moments after the transmission ended. It was our last spark of hope. A final, flickering message in a bottle, thrown into the cosmic ocean. We now live in the shadows of their humming cities. We see the glow on the horizon, the cities they built on the ruins of our ambition. They are powered by our converters, running at efficiencies we never thought possible. They have taken our spark and fanned it into a roaring fire. They control the light. We scavenge in the twilight. Sometimes their patrols find us. They do not seem hostile. They simply watch us, with an expression we cannot read. Is it pity? Contempt? Or is it the same gentle amusement we once had for them? The circle is now complete. We are the new primitives. We huddle around small chemical fires for warmth. We tell stories of the time when we commanded the stars. The young ones barely believe it. It sounds like a myth, a fable of gods who fell from the sky and were humbled by the people of the dirt. A shift in power is a quiet thing. It is not a loud explosion. It is the slow, steady hum of a machine that no longer answers your commands. It is the click of a switch in a room miles away. It is the dawning realization that the future you were building belongs to someone else. Their world is now a beacon, a point of impossible light in this sector of space. Ships from other races will see it one day. They will be drawn to its power, its promise. They will see a civilization that seems to have appeared from nowhere, a technological marvel. They will not know the truth. They will not see the ruins of our outposts hidden in the jungles. They will not know the story of the benefactors who became ghosts. They will only see the Kalan, masters of their world, standing in the light of their electric dawn. We offered them a spark to light their homes. They took it and created a sun. They forged a new destiny for themselves in its fire. And they burned our own to ash. We wanted to be their gods, and like all gods, we were eventually replaced